Welcome to the Transforming Lives panel podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sharmin Prince.
And I'm your other host, Mitzi Dadoun.
Today, before we continue, just join us in a brief grounding exercise by taking a deep inhale through your nose and out through your mouth. Again, take another deep inhale and exhale. In and out. In and let go of everything that didn't serve you today on the exhale. Take another deep inhale so that you could be grounded and centered with us and let go of everything that did not serve you, all the plans that you have for the rest of the evening. Just let it go for the next 30 to 45 minutes. Another deep inhale. And let it go. And now join us back. Thank you for joining us for that brief breathing exercise. Today we have a guest, G. George Graham, who is a multifaceted coach and author of 28 books, and he is based in Boston. He's dedicated to helping others discover and follow their true azimuth. Hope I got that correct. And it's a unique direction that brings purpose and fulfillment to life. As a career, business, and psychedelic support coach, Scott guides clients to align their lives with their deepest values and aspirations. Outside of coaching, Scott manages a nonprofit farm animal rescue. He participates in Tough Mothers. He teaches Sun 7-3, Tai Chi, paddle boards with his dogs, and explore New England's state parks. His daily life is deeply grounded in spiritual meditation practices, and he's committed to his community. Scott, welcome to the Transforming Lives panel podcast. Would you like to add anything to that bio?
You hit it very well. Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Before we get into all of the coaching and all that you have done, what is your inspiration?
My inspiration, I guess, is to make a difference in the lives of people. And that is really core. It's funny. I was on a podcast a couple days ago, and we were talking about a book that I wrote specifically for gay men called Androphile Pride. And the host asked me, is it successful? Are you selling books? How is it working out? And I said to him, if there is one questioning gay man that reads that book and that book impacts his life, that's successful for me. I'm not looking to have $1 million and in fact, in the genre that I write, which is nonfiction, and there's a whole bunch of areas in the nonfiction area that I write, that's not the area that really sells. I talked to a person the other day. She's written 4 books. I've written 28. She's written 4 books, and she's making $1,000 a month from those 4 books. It's like werewolf porn or something, romance novel. That's kind of what it is. It's like a person falls in love with this person, they turn out to be a werewolf, and then there's all this drama, and there's like little bit of sex, and it's a little salacious, and then you read the next book that goes with that. So she wrote a 4-book series, and she's making $1,000 a month. But that's not impacting anybody. That's just like listening, watching TV, or just whiling away the time.
I'm laughing for so many reasons because you're right. None for a lot of people are writing in that genre and they're not making money. And like you, I don't think the reason for writing is to become rich. The reason for writing nonfiction is to share and to ensure that if one person reads it, they will be transformed.
Exactly. Like this book I just published like a month ago. It's called Living the Mangala Sutta. You probably don't even know what the Mangala Sutta is.
I was just going to say, I don't know. Please
And
tell me what it is.
it is a kind of like a Sermon on the Mount that the Buddha did. And he focused on 38 blessings that you can work on to have a more fulfilling life. And so what I did is I wrote this. You see, this is not like some thin book. It's hundreds of pages, 200 pages, and it's about taking those 38 blessings and turning that into life design and then building a life that reflects those 38 blessings. So, like, who's going to read this? Like, there's two people that know what the Mangala Sutta is, right? And then from those two people, you have to get the people that say, oh, yes, I would be interested in life design. And so, but like I said, the same thing with the other book. If one person reads this and it's helpful for them, then that's a success. That's been worth the time to craft this book and put it together.
What are two principles in this book that you can share with us?
Very, very simple principles. There's 38 blessings, and one of those blessings is to honor your family. And so I create a life design around what does that mean to honor your family? Honor your parents, honor your children, honor your spouse. What kind of person lives that way? What kind of things do you have to do to follow through with that? Another blessing is about having balance in your life and not getting swept away by things. And, there's a whole life design chapter around what does it mean to build a life of balance where you're not off the deep end. So it's a very powerful, I find, sutta. That's what it's S-U-T-T-A is, and that's kind of like the Buddhist term for sermon. And it's very short, like one page, 38 blessings, just lists these blessings, like on honoring your father. Think of it like the 10 Commandments, but instead of being thou shalt not do this, it's all about these are the things that you do. These are the blessings that are important in your life. And instead of 10, there's 38. And so it's something that a lot of Buddhists chant, a lot of Buddhists pray and say it because it's very short. Think of it like the Our Father, right, for Christians. But there's not a piece to turn it into practical application. And so it's the only book out there. I don't have any competitors.
That's beautiful.
There's a lot of werewolf, salacious romance novels out there that people are buying, and they're selling like hotcakes. And this is the only book of this, and I think since I wrote it, I've sold like 4 copies.
What drives you to write continuously?
If you haven't guessed already, I have an opinion. I like talking, and I have lots of opinions on lots of things. And so when that crops up and I feel like that I see a piece that's missing, I feel like I want to make my voice heard, and not just heard today. By writing a book, it's going to be heard for a long time. And it's not just topics like this. Like I've got this huge book of stuff that I'm going through. It is, where's this one? Is it this one? This one? A few years ago, after my husband died and my life kind of completely fell apart, I'm trying to figure out what to do to kind of get my act together. And I started going camping, got a camper, an RV, to tow behind thing. And I was trying to figure out, I couldn't do the stuff that I used to do with Brian. It was just too raw, right? It was just, we had places that we went to all the time. We went to New Orleans. We went to Disney with my mom. I can't go to those places. It's just, there's too many rich memories. It's very painful to go to those places. So I looked for something else, and I thought, I got a mountain bike. What a disaster, right? That two dogs running with a mountain bike on a trail. That's like a disaster waiting to happen. And I didn't think about that. I got it, didn't work out. And so then I got a paddleboard, and I thought I'd take two dogs on the paddleboard. I knew nothing about paddleboarding. I knew something about dogs. And I looked for information on what to do to teach your dog how to paddleboard. And there's nothing out there. Like nothing. Like one or two YouTube videos. They show people on the paddleboard with their dogs, and their dogs aren't even wearing BFDs. And there's one book out there that's like 30 pages. And so I had to figure it out from scratch, like how to teach the dogs to get on the paddleboard and how to be safe. Things that people aren't even giving this the amount of respect that you should be. If you've got a dog and you're out in the middle of the lake and your dog falls off the paddleboard, or worse, you and your dog fall off the paddleboard because a wave has come, you better have mastered without a shadow of a doubt how to get your butt back on the paddleboard and how to get them back on the paddleboard. Because if you can't, you're in the middle of the lake, and especially if your dog doesn't have a PFD, it's probably going to drown. There's nothing out there. So I figured it out on what to do to teach the dogs how to do that. And then I wrote a book about it with my dogs. Those are my dogs right there. That's Groot and that's Rocket on a paddleboard from last summer. So went from no information, and 30 pages was the biggest book that's out there. This is 142.
Wow.
A lot. And I didn't go in that depth on stuff. So it's when I see something missing and I'm like, this is important, right? One person reads that book. And I mean, I'd like a number of people to read that book so that dogs aren't drowning or they're not having problems and they're being prepared. But if one person reads that book and saves life, then that's worth it.
So can you talk a little bit about your journey? Like, have you always been writing books? Is this writing books thing since your husband passed away? Did it start before? Can you kind of talk about sort of your life's journey that brought you to where you are today?
Yes, Brian was. And a kind of a hallmark of our relationship. We always had each other's back, no matter what it was. And we always kind of prioritized on what to do to help each other move forward in kind of a selfless way. Not so many people are selfish in their relationships where they're like, well, that's fine. You could launch your business or you could do that. And then people are kind of hamstringed into doing that. And so I was working as a therapist. I was working as a clinical director of a big treatment program for the Department of Corrections. Very focused on helping people get their mental health and addictions and stuff together. And I was managing like 400, 500 clients a year through this program. And I was managing that. And it just was becoming really, I'm not trying to say this is true for all nonprofits, but a lot of nonprofits, especially mental health nonprofits that are working in the community, expect you to throw yourself on the spear for the nonprofit. And I refused to do that. I was doing that actually, and it was not healthy. And I finally was like, all right, I can't do this. And he was like, you should start your own coaching practice. You'd be fine. And so I started my coaching practice, and I was nervous. He's like, we'll be fine. And then I reciprocated that. At some point, he wanted to start a restaurant. And I remember this conversation. It's the same type of conversation we had about my coaching practice. Because he said, he needed money to start up this restaurant. Couldn't get any money. It was during a recession, which actually is a good time to start a business, as an aside. It's the best time to start a business because it's only going to get better. Only going to get better. And so he really wanted to start this business. And I remember I took all the money out of my retirement, every single last penny, and I just gave it to him. And I said, here, use this. And I remember him, he was dumbfounded. And he's like, I don't understand. And I said to him, I would rather have you follow your dream and end up living in a box along the river than not have you follow your dream and have some sort of financial security. It just seemed like such a no-brainer. And he reciprocated those pieces. We both did that piece. And so at some point in my process, I was approached by a company. They're all over the place now. I'm going to use the word scam, but it's not. What they're looking for is somebody who wants to promote themselves as an international best-selling author. And they put these compilation books together, 20 chapters. Maybe there's 700 words per chapter, maybe 1,000 words. You don't have to write much. And then they charge you to write these books. They charge you like $3,000 and you'll be an international best-selling author along with the other. I think about 20 people, $1,000 to $3,000 each. These people haven't even published the book, and they've made somewhere between $20,000 and $60,000 just by creating this compilation piece. And there were like 15 other people that they were pitching, this is exclusive. You'll be on Facebook. We'll do an interview with you. You'll be famous. It'll be great. It's just, you'll be able to tell everyone I'm a best-selling author. And just like with the restaurant, just like with my coaching practice, Brian's like, what are you thinking? You could write that whole damn book yourself. Before you sign up for these people, he says, I'm not telling you that about this because it's a waste of money. He says, write this book yourself. He says, why don't you just give it a try? Just do 1,000 words, and see what you got. And then if that works, do another 1,000 words and do another just do 10 different essays and slap it all together in a book. He says, you can figure it out. And I did. And that was the very first book I wrote. And 28 books later, I'm still on a roll. So really all this stuff is, in many ways, although he's not alive, he's still really a part of my life because the trajectory of my life, just like the trajectory of his life, was grounded in our relationship and the support and encouragement that we got from each other.
And it's so obvious that the two of you had an amazing intertwined connection where you both were continually lifting each other up and giving 100 all the time. It comes shining through. What was the first book that you wrote and when was that?
It was in like 2014, and I stole the title from the people that were doing the compilation book. It was 10 things about coaching you need to know before you hire a coach. I think theirs was 15 things. And I was like, whoa, I don't know if I can do 15. I'll do 10. And so I did 10, and it was like a baby book, 9,000 words or something like that. Not particularly well crafted, but it was the piece that launched me off. Right? Because you think about that, 10 things about coaching. It's like somebody saying 10 things you need to know about a dentist before you go to your dentist. And then they go to get all these different dentists, and all these dentists write a little piece about, you should know this about your dentist. So if you're watching this podcast and you think, oh, I've been approached by that, or I should just write a book. You can write this book, just find someone to help you be accountable and bang out a topic. In this day and age with AI that's out there, they don't write your book. I've started using some of the AI pieces out there. They have given me more feedback, better feedback than any editor I've ever worked with. Like I, and want direct, obnoxious feedback. I wrote this, I uploaded this book, and I'm like, give me critical feedback. I don't care what's good about it. Tell me what's wrong with it and what I need to fix. And like the feedback was, you sound like you're droning on and you're never getting to the point. I'm like, oh, well, I've never gotten that kind of feedback from editors before. Usually editors are like, that's really good. I'm like, oh, what can I do to fix this? Oh, chapter 2 needs tightening here. Chapter 4 needs tightening there. You should completely rewrite chapter 5. I'm like, oh, well, okay. And then I rewrote it, did all this stuff, and I uploaded the new version and the old version. I'm like, is this any better? Oh, yes, but you're still missing this point here. This really sucks. I'm like, wow, thanks for giving me that feedback. But it's really raised the craft, because most editors that I've worked with, they've given me feedback on like commas or, a little bit of rephrasing. I've gotten feedback around the whole story arc or the whole piece that I'm putting together that really has tightened it up in a way that no other feedback I've gotten. I mean, I would pay an editor to give me that kind of feedback. I want that feedback. And so, yeah, now I'm like, instead of hiring an editor, I'm just going to go to like ChatGPT and say, tell me why this thing is shit. And it will. Probably unbelievably great.
Let's segue into your coaching. I read that you are a psychedelic support coach. Can you define what that is?
Yes. So being a psychedelic support coach is my attempt to be ready when the wave comes. Now, the wave might not come. I think the wave's going to come. And that wave means that we're going to see psychedelics spill over, psychedelic therapy, psychedelic experiences. And if that happens, let's move away from if. When that happens, be a little positive here, I'm ready to go. So I've written 4 books on psychedelic therapy so far. 2 of them are my biggest sellers. It's crazy. People are buying these like hotcakes. One of these are there. You can see they're like formatted the same. So this is the psychedelic preparation workbook. Pink. It's pink, right? Pink back. And then I have purple, the psychedelic integration workbook. And so both are key for people to do 60 days prior to their psychedelic experience and then 60 days after their psychedelic experience.
So one of the books, it's pre and post psychedelic. Okay.
One gets you ready, and then one helps you take whatever happened and turn it into something that's going to be integrated and shift your life.
What was the motivation or the inspiration behind that? Because that's forward thinking.
It is. Well, part of what happened is that after Brian died, I've become a little bit more cavalier, for lack of a better word. Somebody pointed out to me, they're like, you drive more recklessly now. Not that I was suicidal. I wasn't trying to drive my car into a tree. I just didn't give a shit about stuff as much as whatever. And so if I ended up driving my car into a tree, I didn't realize that. I was just cavalier. And so that also brought me to trying some psychedelics. And one of the pieces in particular that had a huge impact on me was MDMA, which is being grappled with to become legal. There's a lot of senators and congressmen that have been involved in and have PTSD from serving our country that have had transformative experiences around MDMA and their PTSD. And so I decided to give it a whirl with my grief. Now, for folks listening to this, I want to be really clear that this is not just if you're doing it therapeutically. That's why you play with psychedelics. There's preparation and integration. It's not just like, let me go do a psychedelic. It's not that way at all. And so with MDMA, the impact of that drug doesn't make you hallucinate. It doesn't make you feel like you're floating. What it does is it makes you feel really loving and joyful. Like, think of a time in your life where you felt like you were just emanating joy and love. And that's what this MDMA does for you. So for the therapy to work, you have to have been working with a therapist who knows your deep, dark secrets, who knows that some bad thing happened to you that you just don't want to talk about. And every time you try to talk about it, you fall apart because it's so overwhelming emotionally. PTSD, horrible. And so you take this drug and your therapist is there with you. And then while you're in this emotional loving state, your therapist pokes at you to get you to talk about your PTSD. And so essentially the MDMA kind of bubble wraps you. It's an oversimplification. Bubble wraps you so that you're not as breakable and you can really go deep into talking about that PTSD experience. And then the other piece that it does, in my opinion, is that you end up getting kind of an overlay. Every time you've talked about this really horrible, bad stuff that's happened to you, you've completely fallen apart. Every single time. Very bad, very horrific. And suddenly, you've now been able to talk about that with this overlay of joy and love because you're there with a therapist. You really have to be honest with them. It's not just like, otherwise you're just going to sit around and be like, I love you. It's really nice. It's so nice. I didn't do this with a therapist. After I told you all that, but this is why.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for sharing and being so vulnerable and sharing so deeply your life experiences, the love for your husband, and the excitement of a new and wonderful relationship.
Thank you.
You're welcome.